Welcome to Zen Mind. There is a truth that very few people realize. Pressure does not kill you. The way you understand pressure is what breaks you. Why do some people become sharper under pressure, while you feel frozen and out of control? Maybe the problem is not the situation, but the way your mind responds to it. In this video, you will discover 3 mental frameworks to help you stay calm, even when everything seems to be against you. And maybe after watching this, you will no longer see pressure the same way again. Framework 1. Separate yourself from the outcome. Most of the pressure in life does not come from what you do, but from how you attach yourself to the outcome of it. When you think, "I am this result," everything instantly becomes heavier. A good result makes you feel valuable. A bad result makes you doubt yourself. You no longer see things clearly because everything gets mixed with your ego. That is when risk becomes frightening. Not because the task itself is difficult, but because you are putting your identity on the line. Making a mistake is no longer just doing something wrong, it becomes being wrong as a person. This way of thinking makes you shrink. You start choosing what is safe, avoiding things that might fail, not because you are incapable, but because you do not want the feeling of being inadequate to come back. But reality is very simple. You did not fail. You just experienced a result. A result has no emotion. You are the one assigning emotion to it. Something not going your way does not automatically make you a worse person. It simply shows you what did not work. Strong people understand this clearly. They do not equate themselves with the outcome. They see everything as data. What works, they keep. What does not, they adjust. No self-torment, no inflated sense of self. The difference lies in how they respond. Someone who ties their identity to results gets carried away by every success and failure. Someone who separates themselves stays stable, no matter the outcome. They do not need to win to feel good enough. They just need to learn something to move forward. When you start seeing results as information instead of judgment, you feel much lighter, no longer lifted up by success and no longer crushed by failure. You begin to act more freely, not because you are certain everything will go smoothly, but because you are no longer afraid that a bad result will define who you are. This is the key point. If you let results determine your value, you will always be stuck in a loop of anxiety and defense. But when you separate them, you take back control. You do not need to be perfect. You just need to keep going. Results come and go. They are constantly changing. And you, if aware enough, can always step back to observe and adjust. You are not the outcome. You are the observer. Framework 2. Slow down your perception of time. Pressure does not make you weaker, but it makes you rush. And that rush is what causes you to make mistakes. When your mind is pushed into a state of, "I must act now," you no longer think clearly. You react instead of observing. You choose quickly instead of choosing correctly. That is where things begin to slip out of control. The feeling of urgency usually does not come from the situation, but from how you perceive time. In your mind, everything seems to be moving faster than normal. You feel like you have to keep up, and you start making decisions in a tense state. People who lack control try to speed up to solve the problem. Calm people do the opposite. They slow down, not in their external actions, but in how they process things internally. They do not let their mind get pulled away. Before reacting, they create a small space, A pause, a breath. That space is enough for them to look at the situation instead of being pulled into it. This is an important skill that few people notice. When you know how to stretch time in your mind, you are no longer controlled by pressure. You start to see more clearly what is actually happening, what needs to be done, and what reactions are unnecessary. Everything becomes simpler. The biggest mistake in a tense state is thinking that moving faster will solve the problem. In reality, you are just making mistakes faster. Calm people do not try to race against time. They change the way they see time. A stressful situation for most people is something that must be handled immediately. But for someone with control, it is just a sequence of information to observe. Nothing forces an immediate reaction. They breathe before they act, not to appear calm, but to actually become calm. One well-timed breath can prevent a wrong decision. One well-timed pause can help you see what you would miss in a rush. You do not need more time. You need to experience time differently. When you slow down internally, everything around you also slows down in how you understand it. You notice more details. You miss less. And you act more precisely. This is why calm people often make better decisions. Not because they are smarter. They simply do not let themselves get pulled into the artificial speed created by pressure. They maintain the gap between stimulus and response. That gap is where control exists. If you ignore that gap, you live on reflex. If you keep it, you begin to live with awareness. Do not try to be faster when things get tense. Slow down internally, even if you are still acting externally. Calm people do not act faster. They see things more slowly. Framework 3. See pressure as data, not danger. Your brain does not clearly distinguish between pressure and danger. As soon as you feel tension, it immediately activates a defensive mode. Your heart beats faster. Your thoughts become more chaotic. You start wanting to avoid or react immediately. Not because the situation is truly dangerous, but because it feels that way. This is a very common confusion. Pressure is not a signal that you are in danger. It is simply a signal that something matters to you. You feel tense because you care. But instead of understanding it as information, you interpret it as a threat. And from there, all your reactions start to drift in the wrong direction. You become defensive. You think more negatively than usual. You imagine worst-case scenarios. You want to escape the situation instead of facing it. All because of a misinterpretation. People with strong control do not try to eliminate pressure. They change how they read it. They see pressure as a form of data, a signal that says, "This matters, pay attention." That is all. No warning of danger. No reason to panic. When you see pressure this way, your response completely changes. You no longer rush to avoid it, but begin to observe. You ask, "Why do I feel this way?" instead of, "How do I get rid of this feeling?" The difference is significant. Pressure now becomes a tool. It helps you identify what deserves your focus. It shows you where you need better preparation, not where you need to run away. You start using it instead of being controlled by it. The biggest mistake is not the pressure itself. It is how you interpret that feeling in your mind. If you see it as danger, you will react as if you are being threatened. If you see it as information, you will respond like someone analyzing a situation. Two perspectives, two completely different outcomes. You do not need to be free of pressure to perform well. You just need to not misunderstand it. When you stop associating pressure with danger, you stay clear-headed. You are not pulled too far by emotions. You remain in a state of control. That is when you perform at your best. Pressure does not disappear, but it is no longer frightening. It becomes a neutral signal waiting to be read correctly. Pressure is not the enemy. Your misinterpretation of it is. Detach, the true power of the mind. Speed is not what makes you strong. Reacting fast is sometimes just reflex, not control. Many people take pride in thinking fast and deciding quickly. But if every decision is driven by emotion, then fast simply means making mistakes faster. True strength lies in distance. The distance between you and your thoughts. The distance between you and your emotions. The more distance you can maintain, the less you get pulled away. That is detachment, not numbness, not coldness, but not letting yourself get carried away by everything happening in your mind. A negative thought appearing does not mean you have to believe it. An uncomfortable emotion appearing does not mean you have to act on it. Weak people react immediately to stimulation. Strong people observe first. They see thoughts come and go. They recognize emotions as temporary states. They do not rush to identify themselves with those things. That is why they are not controlled. When you are attached, everything becomes personal. A single comment hits you. A glance makes you overthink. A small situation is enough to throw you off balance. You no longer see reality clearly. You are only reacting to how you interpret reality. On the other hand, when you detach, you begin to see things as they are. No more, no less. You do not need to win every argument. You do not need to be right in every situation. You do not need to prove yourself to anyone. You only need to keep your mind clear. That is why detached people are often very stable. They are not lifted by favorable outcomes. They are not crushed when things go off track. They maintain a level of balance that others struggle to reach. Not because they control the world, but because they control how they relate to the world. Attachment makes you overreact. Detachment helps you respond appropriately. The difference is small, but the consequences are massive over time. You do not need to become faster to become stronger. You need to be pulled less. Trust your thoughts less. Let your emotions decide less. Identify yourself less with things that are constantly changing. When you do that, you begin to gain freedom. Freedom from reflex. Freedom from the pressure to always be right. Freedom from the need to maintain an image in the eyes of others. And that is real power. The strongest minds are not the fastest ones. They are the least attached ones. Calm is not about controlling the world. You cannot control everything happening around you. No matter how well you prepare, life still finds ways to go off plan. Trying to control everything only exhausts you. Many people think calmness comes when everything is within reach. But in reality, that state is rare. And if you depend on it, you will always feel unstable. Because the world does not stand still for you to feel okay. True calm does not come from things being easy. It comes from no longer being pulled around by what is difficult. A bad situation no longer automatically ruins your state. A single comment no longer easily triggers you. An unfavorable result no longer makes you doubt yourself. You still see everything, but you are no longer pulled into it. This is the important difference. People who try to control the world are always tense, because they are trying to hold on to something that cannot be held. People who know how to control themselves are different. They accept that things will change, and they focus on how they respond. That is the only thing you truly have. You do not need to make everything perfect to feel okay. You only need to not let imperfect things control you. A small shift in perspective, but it changes your entire experience of life. When you stop trying to control the outside, you have more energy to stabilize the inside. You no longer have to strain to keep everything the way you want. You become more flexible, more grounded in reality. And the paradox is, the more you let go of controlling the world, the better you handle it. Because now, you are not reacting from panic. You are responding with clarity. You do not need everything to be easy to stay calm. You only need to not let everything control you. That is the foundation of stability, not the absence of change, but not being shaken by change. When you reach this state, you no longer live based on circumstances. You begin to live based on choice. It is not always easy, but it is always trainable. And then you realize something very simple. Calmness was never about controlling the world. It is about not letting the world control you.